Now I see myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want me to get started? Or are you gonna go through
Yeah, you
anything
can
else?
just dive right in.
Okay, awesome. Before I like fully introduce myself and tell you kind of about my background and everything, I want to do a little exercise just to kind of like get us grounded and here and present, because I know you all probably have a million things going on. And when you're not in person, it's hard to kind of like feel like you're in the room. And so I want to do this thing that you probably may have heard of before called rosebud thorn. And so the thorn is the thing that you're worried about. It's the thing that's bothering you, nagging you. It's like the not so great thing about your day. The bud is that thing that's kind of on the horizon that you're getting excited about, that you're really looking forward to, that's kind of developing. And then the rose is that thing that you're really proud of, the thing that's blossomed, that you've worked hard on and that you're happy about. And this could be anything. It could be personal, it could be professional, it could be totally goofy. So does anybody want to share? You can share in the chat, you can come off mute. A rose, a bud, and a thorn. So I mean, I can go. I guess my rose is that one of the platforms that I built at work was just featured in like a big report that my company did. So I was very proud about that. My team was very excited about that. So that's a rose, something that I've been working on for a long time, and it's finally bloomed. Anybody else have roses?
I'll hop into the fire.
Yeah.
Let's see. My rose would be, well, I guess it would be more of a bloom, is that we're 2 weeks away from finishing our campaign pitch. So I'm super excited for that. We went through a lot and it's all finally coming together.
That's awesome. I know it feels like the summer's just started, but it's been so long now. So you do have like a couple of good weeks under your belt. Anyone else? I'd say my bud is that I'm kind of like in the process of getting a new home. So I'm excited to see where that goes and to kind of have a little more space than the tiny studio that I've been stuck in. Because especially now that we're kind of in this hybrid scenario, we're a little bit remote still. It's strange to have your work and your life so interconnected.
I can go. So
Yeah,
not really me, but like it gave me hope kind of. So like a rose for me would be, I'm a really big football or like soccer fan, I suppose. And like England, I bet everyone knows about the Euro stuff that happened. And one of my favorite players has been getting like a lot of racial abuse on Twitter and stuff. And it was really sad to see, especially because he'd done a program that had like helped loads of people. And like, it's just a game at the end of the day. So, but recently his mural that got defaced in Manchester, there were people who in the community went and like covered it up with really, really nice like words and letters and stuff. And a lot of people have been like changing the narrative to actually start talking about like problems with racism in football and encouraging the younger players. So that was really hopeful and nice to see that people are, you know, like lending support out of a bad situation.
Yeah, that was amazing to see. And I saw that they kind of extended that conversation around sport into kind of the racial backgrounds of the government and all of these other higher powers, that it's kind of gone beyond sport, which is really hopeful to see that the more traditional places have been touched by this. I see bright and sunny in Chicago. That is huge because the weather has been wild, I think, all over the country. Heat waves and all of that. And I will definitely go on Zillow Gone Wild. Thank you for that. And then another bud, leading a brand campaign for a brand which has been going super well, and excited to see the final product. Yeah, that's exciting because soon that will be a rose. And then I think this is the toughest one to share, but thorns. This is the toughest, but I think the most important to kind of name and let go and be vulnerable about, because once you kind of say your thorn out loud and you kind of get it out of the way, that's when you can move on and really do good work. And I think even in the workplace, we're seeing now that vulnerability and being kind of upfront with your struggles and your issues is what leadership is about now. It's about being just as confident in what you're good at and what's going well as what you don't know and what you're having trouble with, and asking for help. And so I would say my thorn is that my cat passed away last week, and was kind of amazing to see that, like, I opened up and shared this at work, and like my teammates cried on the call. My boss, who's like one of the most important men in advertising, cried on the call. And so that's what real leadership looks like. That kind of vulnerability, that getting to know your teammates and your peers is scary, but it's important nowadays. And thank you. All right.
That's so sad.
Anybody
How
have
are
a
you?
thorn? I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm getting there. Does
That
anybody have a
close you.
thorn that they want to share? Something that they just want to put out into the world and kind of move on from?
I'll share a thorn. I've been battling a cold for about a week, and Aisha can attest to it. It's been a nasty one, and I just want to get rid of it. And it's just been a huge thorn in my side.
Yeah. I feel like, especially now, every time someone gets a cold, you're like, oh my God, do I have COVID? What's happening?
I'm so terrified to cough in public because it's like everybody will glare at you. So I've just been kind of like really trying to choke on my own coughs, and it's not fun.
All the dirty looks. All right. So thank you for sharing a little bit, getting to know you, getting to know me a little bit. I see another thorn. Realizing my summer isn't going to be all cocktails and sunshine, but full of work. I think that's a lot of us. But you have to make time for cocktails and sunshine. Schedule like 15 minutes to go for a walk every day. Schedule some time to be outside, because it will make your work all the better. And I think that your teammates will understand. Take some calls while you're walking. There are ways to kind of get that in there. And I see a lot of people are feeling that. All right, so let's start. I can tell you a little bit about my path and how I got to where I am now, because it was a little bit untraditional and not linear. And so I think it's good for you all to know that it's completely okay to not know what you want to do or where you want to be, or be in a role that you're kind of unsure about right now. Because, even me, I'm not sure what's next for me. I don't know what my kind of dream role is, but I just trust that if I follow my gut, I do good work, have good relationships, and enjoy and really put in the work in the moment that I'm in, I'll get to the place that I'm meant to be. Especially because, as we've seen over the past 5-10 years, there are jobs that hadn't existed before. There's new possibilities, new companies, new roles that will be created in the next few years that you don't even know about yet. So stay open to possibility. Don't think you have to be on a set path, because you never know who you're going to connect with or what you might stumble upon that will change the course of your direction and open you up to what you're meant to be doing. And so I started actually in the publishing world. I was an editor at a magazine, and it was at the time when digital was coming into the forefront. And so I started to do digital content. I started to do social media, branded content, syndicated content. And so that was like kind of my untraditional foray into marketing. I didn't really know what it entailed besides, I thought I knew PR was a thing. I knew like those big commercial spots were a thing, but I didn't realize there was all of this in between. And so from there, I used that to work in a startup doing social media, and eventually found my way to Omnicom. And so does everybody know what Omnicom is? Anyone want to take a stab in the dark?
I would love it if one of our Omnicom interns shared about what Omnicom is.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's Jesse, that's Nicholas Sue, that's Salon. Anyone? Jump in. I'll pick on you. Jesse, why don't you share with us?
Hello?
He's there.
Oh, no, someone, I think Lon is speaking.
Oh, okay. Lon,
Yeah,
feel
I was
free to
speaking
share.
here.
Continue, Lon.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you not able to hear me?
I couldn't hear
No,
you, but
no.
go ahead, Lon.
Oh, I apologize.
Oh,
So basically Omnicom is a holding company for a lot of different agencies. Myself, Jesse, and Nick both work for the Omnicom Specialty Marketing Group, which is like a section of Omnicom, but it's basically like a huge holding company for like ad agencies, different media companies, PR, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that was perfect. It's basically this big company that owns all of these other advertising and marketing companies. So about 170 agencies around the world that span all different types of disciplines. So again, that includes those big creative agencies like BBDO who make the Super Bowl commercials, data and analytics agencies, PR agencies, market research. We even have an agency that just does marketing for Broadway. And so what I do is kind of help all of those different agencies, our 70,000 employees around the world, to kind of understand how and why they interconnect. And I help them create and, curate all of the best of their research, their thought leadership, case studies, and anything else they produce so that they can all share and borrow from each other's expertise and resources because they do share a lot of clients. So a client like Doritos, we have 10 different agencies working on that in different capacities in different regions. And so Omnicom, come talk to me if you ever want to work in an Omnicom agency. There are a ton of opportunities. It's a good way to kind of get to know all of the different pieces of marketing and see how everything interconnects in that full funnel. So if you ever want to be a CMO, a holding company is a great place to get expertise because you get a 360 view of what's happening in marketing. And so that's a little bit about me. And now I will actually get into what we're talking about today, which is navigating thankless tasks. Can you all see my screen? You're good?
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Oh, wait. Can you still see? No? Yes?
No, it's cut off.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
clear.
Hold on. I think because it's in a different window. Because I prefer to look at your faces than my presentation while I'm presenting it. So let's see how I can get this to work. No?
Yes.
Okay. So navigating thankless that will now something like you're in a meeting, your manager brings up a project that needs to be worked on, and there are all of those, hold on, I don't know why my screen sharing is not working anymore. You think by now I'd understand how to use Zoom.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, okay. So navigating thankless tasks. These are the things that are not getting up the corporate ladder. This is the work that you're assigned that is the more administrative work. It's the kind of getting coffee. It's doing, oh, that's not me moving that. It's you're in a meeting, your manager asks, you know, who wants to take on this project? It's kind of, you know, an Excel-based project. It's kind of the lowest end of the totem pole. Everybody's kind of looking around at each other. No one wants to raise their hand, but you feel like you kind of have to do it. You have to kind of put in the work. So you raise your hand and you get to work on this kind of low choice project while your peer, who maybe is at the same level as you, is working on, you know, something client facing. And so a lot of times this comes in the form of office housework, you know, getting the coffee or arranging the meeting rooms or taking the notes. There's something called being the fixer. This is something a lot of women experience where, you know, someone has to placate the client or cheer up, you know, Fred, who is in a bad mood and who can't get everything he needs. There's emotional labor where you're kind of the person that's constantly getting complained to. You're the person who's constantly getting the negative feedback and has to kind of be the office mom. And so let's get into how we can maybe look at the history of this and work against it. The facts: 53% of women of color and 63% of men of color report less access to desirable assignments than their colleagues. So this is something that does have some racial implications and some roots in systemic racism. A lot of times we see there's a group of interns and the straight white dudes are kind of broing out and getting buddy with the executives while some of the other people are, you know, again, fetching the coffee, things like that. Volunteering for non-promotable tasks the office can actually shift your career into reverse. So a lot of times when you're an intern, you do have to do these things. When you're at entry level, you do have to do some of those administrative tasks, some of those back of house things. But when it comes to volunteering, if there are, you know, 5 of you who are at the same level and are in the same kind of position, you cannot be the only person that is volunteering for these kinds of tasks. You have to kind of spread the love. You can't be that only person because you'll get stuck in that. You won't be asked to do other things when there is an ask happening. So besides being tiring, stressful emotional labor has been identified as a risk factor for burnout, depression, other forms of psychological distress. And so I think based on what your thorns were today, you're feeling this, that kind of that labor of taking care of people, of always being the one who gets the emotional burden or has to fix the problem, that going above and beyond your role to take on all that emotionally is a huge contributing factor to burnout. And I think especially in the pandemic, we've seen that a lot, where you have to deal with all of your own emotional stuff at home, your family, your friends, all of that. But then you come into work and you're expected to take on everybody's feelings and everybody's problems. You have to find ways to set boundaries in terms of that as well. And then the last, employees who complain about doing this work, especially people of color, are often labeled as angry, aggressive, or not team players. And again, this is another huge issue, that there is such a fine line for some people about what they kind of feel like they have to like shut up and take it or push back on. And how do you kind of push back when there's already these preconceived notions around you just because of, you know, the way you look or the way you identify. And so how do you gracefully decline? How do you bow out and, you know, seem like a team player, seem like an active member of the team, like a go-getter, but not put yourself always in this position of doing something like this. And so does anybody have any ideas of how you might say no, how you have said no in the past? Anyone?
Yes, I would say thank you for considering me for this project, but at the moment I don't have the capacity to work on anything at this time. Does that sound good?
That's a great one. Because it shows you are at capacity, you're doing all of these other things, and that you can't add more to your plate because you might let something else suffer. So that's a great response. Become clear on your priorities and boundaries. I think I touched on this a little bit before, but like you just said, you have all of this other stuff on your plate. And so going a step beyond that and clarifying some of the things you have on your plate to your manager, whoever's asking you of this, to say, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. This is why those projects are very important. And this is why I don't have the capacity to work on that. Really, and in reminding your manager of what you're working on, they start to continue to think, oh, this is what that person's good at. These are their strengths. This is what they're accomplishing. And so while you're saying no, you're kind of deflecting away from what you can't do into what you are doing. And that's really powerful. 2, remind your boss that you're seeking new challenges. You can say something like, you do kind of have the capacity for that. I think you can bring something else to the table and say, well, yeah, I could do that, but I had this great idea and I've been wanting to implement this. Or, I see, X person who is my peer working on a project like this and becoming more client facing. I'd love the opportunity to do that too, so that, we can be on the same playing field here. Number 3, have a solid argument ready for your boss. I think coming prepared to the table, if you see yourself being asked over and over, start to kind of formulate these arguments, like I said before. And I think find examples of when your peers are not being asked and you're always being asked. Find examples of choice projects that your peers are getting that you are not getting, so that you have that real tangible comparison. So you can say, hey, I've been doing, the note taking in meetings for the past 4 weeks. Would it be possible for, Jeff to do this, and I can, take over that project for a little bit so that I can have that experience and he can have this experience? And so have kind of those arguments ready so that when you are asked, you're well versed in what you have to say and you have those examples ready to go. And then lastly, go from yes and to no but. And that's like what I was saying before. Point to the things that you're doing or you can do. And then you can say, I can't do that, but I can do this instead, and it will be so much more valuable. So, maybe no, I can't, handle the responses to this event, but I can look at the gaps we have in, the invitees or the speakers that we're doing. So find a little bit more elevated position for the task. And then sometimes you're going to get those assignments that are thankless tasks, but maybe you do enjoy doing that. Maybe you do enjoy the party planning. Maybe you do enjoy that, diversity and inclusion work. So how can you take those tasks and take them from thankless to contributing to your upward momentum? And so 1, you can make sure it's recognized as extra labor. You can, when you are asked to do these things or when you volunteer to do these things, keep track of them and then take them to your boss and say, I've been volunteering for our LGBT employee resource group, and these are all of the ways that it's helped our business, and these are all of the senior leaders who have come to the events that I've produced, and this is how it's contributing to our clients. negotiate the conditions of your help. I think you can say, yeah, I'd love to do this one task, but it goes to that but can I also be considered for a leadership position on this account? And so finding ways to leverage that work and to kind of balance it with another thing and say, I'm doing this, so can I also do this? Show how it's transforming your role. I mean, I think that this has happened particularly this year with a lot of people of color, with LGBT people, with other under-recognized communities. We've started to take on things outside of our role that are really contributing to business, but that are not, paid, that are not fully recognized. And so you can show that the work you're doing in one space in these tasks is making your role into something that it's not. I mean, even with my role, I started taking on more and more. And then eventually I wrote a whole new job description for myself and took that to my boss and said, these are all the things that I was doing that you did not ask me to do, but that had to be done. And that I took on, when people left or when new clients came on. And this is what my role looks like now. This is what my role could evolve to be. Can we make this into a reality? Can we match my salary with that? Can we match my title with that? And it worked. So really take stock of these things and figure out the ways that it contributes to the work that you're doing, how it helps your team. Show your boss, like, this is helping you, this is helping our teammates, and this is the new way that my role looks. And that could be really powerful. This is a way for you to almost promote yourself. Ask for more information. I think always asking the why behind the work you're asked to do is powerful, because it makes your boss or your manager reflect, number one, on what the actual task is and why they specifically asked you to do it. So you can say, why was I assigned to this project? What of my strengths make me the person that you asked to do this? Or what of my weaknesses made you ask me to do this? And it will allow them to reflect on, are they just defaulting to you? Are they asking you because you're good at something? And having them name your strengths is really powerful, because it will solidify when it comes to your performance review that you are good at this thing and this is what you should be rewarded for. And how can I support my peers experiencing this? Finding peers amongst each other, the fact that you're part of this program and that you have this set of people at your level going through the same thing as you is so powerful, because you should be constantly checking in with each other. Find people on your team that you can do the same thing within your company, because it's not just about you, it's about community and having people to bounce ideas off of, having people to talk through conversations, having people to say, are you also experiencing this? And how you dealt with it, or how can we help each other deal with it, is absolutely key. That's how you're going to really progress in your career, is having this strong network of people. And so number one, practice saying no together. Just, hop on a Zoom, hop on a phone call, and it sounds really dorky, but have these conversations. Have someone play your boss, and then you practice saying, no, I can't do this, but I can do this. Or, I'd like to take on this task. And one of my favorite things that I like to tell people to do is put yourself in positions to be told no that don't matter. So, when you're renting a car, go ask for the upgrade, even though they might not give you the upgrade, because getting used to asking and putting yourself out there a little bit, whether you're told no or not, is good experience in an environment where it doesn't actually matter. It's great for, preparing for negotiations and things like that, to just practice in a very low pressure scenario, asking for what you want and, sometimes being told no. Like go to Starbucks and ask for like, can I get that upgraded to a free venti and see what happens? Because sometimes it'll actually work. Set up a rotation for office housework. And this one, especially if you have a bigger team and you notice that stuff is falling on you, find ways to almost gamify it. I once worked in an office when I was in a startup where they had a wheel. We created this wheel where you spun the wheel and whoever the wheel landed on would be the person that got coffee that day. And like we even had the executives on that wheel. So you can find fun ways to kind of spread the love and divvy up the work without making it into a confrontation or making it into a big deal. And so find creative ways to gamify it and like set up those kinds of rotations. Play up their strengths and goals. One of the most incredible things that you could do is find a coworker at your level in your company and form a bond with that person and be their advocate. And so both of you always have each other's back. Both of you always, when one of you has like a really great report go out or you do really good work on a project, the other person should be going around the company telling people about it and saying, look at this amazing thing that Maya did. You should totally check out this report that she wrote. She wrote this amazing article. She got this awesome award. And so to have somebody else kind of talk you up and you do the same for that person, it makes it feel more comfortable than advocating for yourself sometimes. And you have that constant ally who always has your back. And sometimes they see things about yourself that you don't. Sometimes you'll be so in the weeds on a project that you don't even know that you're doing a good job. And they're like, hey, you really knocked that out of the park. And then you finally can look up and say, I did knock that out of the park. And last, help them find a way to elevate it. So again, like I said before, with some of those tasks that you do want to be doing, like some of that DE&I stuff or that event stuff or whatever it might be, help them find ways to make it into something bigger and help them to advocate for that to be something bigger. And now I want to get into like a couple of just general things that you can do when you enter a workplace, any workplace. And I think not even just starting out in your career, just throughout your entire career, that will always help you and that you should always come back to. And number one is document everything. At the end of the week, I have this book that has all my to-do lists in it. At the end of the week, I documented everything I did and everything I didn't do, and I make notes about it. And then I transfer it to a spreadsheet to kind of keep track, because you start to notice patterns. So a lot of times you usually do the things that you like to do and that you enjoy doing. And so you can kind of notice like, oh, I didn't do these things because I don't like doing them, or I'm afraid of doing them, or I don't think I'm good at that. And so you can start to kind of understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you need to play up, what you need to ask for help on. And so that's powerful to kind of just keep track and what sometimes you realize how much you've done in a week and you feel so important because yep. Oh, I thought someone said something.
Yeah.
This is also really.
Am I the only one? Is it on my end?
No,
No,
Ro,
I
you're
hear that.
freezing.
Oh, am I freezing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Am I back or no?
a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. Where did I cut off?
You were kind of going through the second task, the second reminder.
Okay. And so it's also great to document everything, because when it comes to your performance review, you have something to show. You have everything that you've done and everything you've worked on ready to present to your boss, or ready to have a conversation with your boss, or ready for an interview. When you're interviewing for another job, you can easily come back to this list you have of all the things you've done to show, this is what I'm good at. These are what my strengths are. And these are the things that I've accomplished. And so number 2, find mentors. There's nothing like having mentors. You can have mentors, that are your peers, that are younger than you, that work at your company, that work outside of your company, but talk to everybody. Find people who can, again, you can have conversations to bounce things off of, that you can go to and say, I'm having trouble with this, or that you can go to celebrate something and have these people celebrate with you. Having mentors is how you're going to find your next job. It's how you're going to get promoted in your company or move to a new team. And having mentors outside of your discipline, if you're in advertising, have a mentor in PR that will teach you, how to properly talk about your work and communicate about your work and brand yourself. You should have diversity of mentorship, because that's where you'll get out of your comfort zone. You'll learn what you don't know yet, and you'll be able to connect the dots across different opportunities. And so I can't recommend more finding mentors and staying in touch with these people. Like, every time someone comes to you in this program and there's a presentation like this, go to LinkedIn, send them a note, and stay in touch. It's as easy as doing that. And then in a couple months, you see an article that reminds you of the work the person's done or something that they talked about, and shoot it their way and say, hey, this article reminded me of something that you said when you presented to us. It was really powerful. I'd love to get coffee, or I have a question about this. And it's as easy as just kind of, reminding them you're there, so that when they maybe have an opportunity, they're like, oh, I remember that person that, sent me that thing. And so there are easy ways to kind of connect with people and form these groups. It doesn't have to be so formal as someone you meet with every month, or someone that you come to when you're having an issue. It can be just like very friendly and conversational. And this is the most important. This is everything. Trust your gut. If something does not feel right, it is usually not right. So always, again, ask questions, dig into the why, and find out, have the hard conversations, talk to people about what you're feeling and why, and ask them why something is the way it is, or why a tension exists, or, raise the thing that makes you feel uncomfortable, because that is number one, when your workplace changes for the better and the culture of a place changes for the better, where your team changes for the better. And also, I think it's where the best creative ideas come from, the best insights come from. It's that tension where there is an uncomfortability or a problem. And those problems we have to start looking at them as opportunities. So really trust your gut. When you're interviewing, if you get a bad vibe from a hiring manager, don't even give it a second thought, because there's something there that's triggering to you. There's something there that's off to you. And so really honor that. And I see a question. How do you navigate a new workplace when everybody has very specific roles or prefers you not to interfere? That's hard. I think you can ask why, again, go back to the why you don't want interaction between teams. And I think if you can find reasons to interact and reasons why it will benefit your team or benefit your role, to understand the way another team is working or the way somebody else is working that someone can't really argue with, that is always helpful to kind of be backed by an argument. But when everybody has specific roles, fine, especially if it's in this remote environment, be the person who organizes like a little bit of a happy hour, or who sends some sort of like getting to know you email or something. and find more informal ways to connect rather than work where someone might feel like a little bit threatened by it. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have
I
two
have a
with their
question.
hands raised.
Okay, I see.
So I
Yeah.
had a question.
Yep.
I was wondering, well, first of all, like really good presentation. Thank you for that. I was kind of wondering, I guess like for this presentation, it feels like I would be able to kind of do these things when I'm in a full-time job, but like when you're in an internship and like you hear all this advice about like say yes to everything, be the first one in, last one out, like, you know, like do everything, like how do you balance like setting boundaries and stuff, but also being able to like go above and beyond and like advocate for yourself to eventually get that like full-time hire?
Yeah, I think that act of documenting everything is helpful in that, in noticing, you know, what you're actually doing and how it's making you feel and when you feel like you're burning out. You never want to sacrifice, you know, your mental health for like going above and beyond and getting the job. Obviously in an intern position, you do want to do a little extra and do a little more. But I think also taking stock of what the people around you are doing and understanding, like, are you on the same level as your peers? Are they also doing this? Or are they getting the same opportunities you are? That's also pretty key. It's just kind of taking context of the full environment that you're in and understanding where you sit kind of in that whole environment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Jensine had a question too.
Hi, thank you so much for this presentation. It was amazing. My question was about, I actually had two questions. My first question is, from your experience, what are the questions that you find helpful to ask in that first initial interview that will give you some more insight on how to be successful in the first 90 days of the role that you'll be taking on? And then the second one is, when is the right time to, I guess, express how you want to, like, you know, go after larger projects or projects that will help you move up the ladder? When is the right time?
Yes, these are great questions. I think in the first instance, even just asking, how will I be evaluated after 90 days? What do you expect from me after 90 days to excel? Who should I get to know in those first 90 days to help me have an understanding of the organization, to, you know, help me succeed in my role? And so just getting into I think the logistics of those first 90 days and setting the expectation that you hope to have a conversation after 90 days to kind of reset and re-level and know what you should have accomplished by that point is huge. And I think that will be really impressive to people. And then in terms of the other question, when you should start to ask, when's the right time? I think number one, if you see other people at your level getting access to more and, you know, taking on bigger projects, but you are not, that is definitely the right time, because that means there's something off there. Either they don't think of you in a certain way or you haven't raised your hand enough. And so just getting right in there at that point and saying, hey, I saw that this person got that opportunity. I'd love to be considered next time there's an opportunity like that. I mean, it's as simple as that. And then if you don't have any direct peers and there's kind of less clarity around that, I think notice where your coworkers or your manager need help and use those as opportunities to start to raise your hand and take on a little bit more. Or when a big project does come online and you are very excited about it, I think you just express excitement and say, hey, I saw that we got this new project in. I'm really excited. These are some of the ideas I have. And, you know I'm junior, but I'd love to kind of take on some of this or help you in any way that you need.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anybody else?
We have one more question in the chat, and I can read it aloud. What productivity tools do you use to document everything you've done?
I like good old fashioned pen and paper. So on a daily basis, I do it in a notebook, but then I just put it into a Google Sheet at the end of the day. But then, in workflow of my actual work with my team, I do use on Microsoft Teams, there's Planner. And so that's what we just kind of all use to collectively stay on track. But for me personally, I have it in my notebook and then on my personal Gmail Google Sheets. That way, if I were to leave a job, it's still all there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ro, for joining us and for sharing that very valuable session on, navigating the workplace. Guys, if you have any more questions, I'm sure Ro would be willing to give her LinkedIn so that you can stay in touch, just like she says. And thank you so much. We're going to be sharing out this presentation, of course, after the Lunch and Learn completes. And again, thank you, Ro.
Thank you all. Sorry for technical difficulties. I will learn to use Zoom at some point, but yeah, feel free to reach out. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. If you have questions that you didn't think about in the moment, please feel free to follow up.
Awesome. You can feel free to stay on or jump if you have to. No pressure, but pressure. For our next session, we're going to be moving into our executive salon, which is going to be featuring our guest at Mastercard. So we have Lisa Maxwell, who's the VP of B2B marketing. And we also have Arielle Knight, who's the VP of people and capability. So Lisa and Arielle, I see you. I'm going to spotlight
Hello.
you. Hi.
Hi,
everyone. Sure. How are you?
We are doing well. So where's my Arielle? There she is. Hi.
Hi, partner in crime.
Maya, thank you so much for having us. And thanks so much for the Advertising Club of New York. We figured we'd just have a casual conversation and exchange between Arielle and I. And we'll start off with each other's bios and then go into questions back and forth, if that works all right. And I'm gonna try to watch the chat, but I'm not like the young folks who can multitask in those ways. So we'll do our best. Anything to add, Arielle?
Nope, that's it. We'll try to co-watch the chat, but there'll definitely will be time for questions at the end. Or if you have any program questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll get to them as soon as we can. But we're really looking forward to it today. So nice to meet everyone.
Yes. All right, so let me start off and talk to you about how fly Arielle really is with her bio. So Arielle Knight currently holds the position of Vice President of Human Resources at Mastercard, based at their global headquarters in Westchester County, New York. Me and Arielle work together. She has a strong background in various industries, having worked at companies such as PepsiCo, Lockheed Martin, and Procter & Gamble, where they didn't give me a job, but we'll talk about that later, in various human resources leadership positions across the USA and internationally. Additionally, Arielle serves on the President's Council for her alma mater, Purdue University, and is an active mentor with Connections Mentoring in the New York metropolitan area. Arielle has a Bachelor's of Science in Business Management and Marketing and a Master of Science in Human Resources Management from Cranhurt School of Management at Purdue University. Having lived in 15 US states and also in Ankara, Turkey, she considers herself a global citizen. Outside of her professional endeavors, she enjoys traveling, playing tennis, I don't have any hand-eye coordination, so I'm jealous, and spending time with her family, friends, and mentees. Welcome, Arielle.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. And I will do the same for Lisa so that you guys can get to know the fabulous Lisa and who she is. So, all right. So Lisa Maxwell currently holds the position of Vice President of B2B Marketing, which is business to business marketing at Mastercard. Based at their global headquarters in Purchase, New York. When we were back in the office, our desks were literally right around the corner from each other. She runs the campaign development team, which creates integrated marketing campaigns that highlight Mastercard's data and services solutions. Prior to joining Mastercard, she worked in various roles to reinvent and reinvigorate brands. Notable is her work as a marketing director at GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare, where she established a reputation of leading sustainable business turnarounds, taking brands like Nicorette, Nicoderm CQ, and Abreva from negative to double-digit growth. I know we've all heard of some of those brands ourselves. Lisa started her marketing career at J&J at Johnson & Johnson, where she supported the transformative growth of brands like KY Intimacy Enhancement line. Lisa was named top 10 inspiring marketers of 2021. Huge, huge honor, and is a recipient of the B2B Innovator Award, the YWCA's Tribute to Women in Industry Award, and an alumni of Women in America and a committee of 200 scholars. Lisa earned her MBA at Duke University, Fuqua School of Business, and she is a proud parent of a teenage, beautiful young girl named Amina. So now you guys know a little bit more about Lisa and I. Any questions before we get started? And we're going to kind of do a little bit of a tag team in terms of asking each other questions, and so you can get to know a little bit more about us in our background. So, but feel free, like I said, to jump in with questions. All right, Lisa, I'm going to start and ask you the first question, and then we'll go from there. So Lisa, why don't you tell everyone what's your origin story? Tell us a little bit more about, who you are, how'd you get to be where you are?
Well, I have a very different origin story. I'm an immigrant of the United States. I was born and raised in Jamaica, in Spanish Town, Jamaica, and I went to school for the most part throughout all the way through high school in Jamaica. I moved to New York City after graduating from Holy Childhood High School in Kingston, Jamaica. And that was in Halfway. So, and if there's any Jamaicans in the house, please shout it out. Let me see you. I know that there must be some. I came here and then had to, yes, Jensine, I knew it, Jensine, I knew it. Anyway, so I came to New York as a teenager. I was 16 years old, and I had been separated from my mom for 2 years because she was a nurse, and she came to the United States for opportunities for my sister and I. And so we had to stay in Jamaica with my dad for 2 years while I went to school, and my younger sister, who was 8 at the time, was also in school. And when I came to New York, I didn't want to move away from my mom again, right? I missed her. So I went 1 year in John Jay High School in Brooklyn, which that was hard to be an immigrant as a teen and go into senior year and pretty much repeat senior year because people didn't understand how you are 16 years old and you already graduated high school. They were like, that don't make no sense. So I went to high school, was fully traumatized in high school in the US versus Jamaica, very, very different. And then I went to Baruch College of the City University of New York. And by just chance, I was sitting in the auditorium one day and somebody walked up to me and said, "Do you want to get a paid internship?" Yeah, I do. And they gave me the name, and that was before Google and before phones. I had to go home and flip open the phone book. I know y'all don't even know what a phone book is, and look for inroads and call the people and leave them a message. And then the people sent me a letter. I know another thing that y'all don't understand, snail mail, with an application for inroads. And really that's how I was able to land an internship at Colgate-Palmolive and learn about marketing. We can talk a bit more about that later on, but I wanted to give you guys a sense that I had to start as an intern by nature of an angel. I don't even know who this person was telling me about inroads, and then following through on that opportunity. So Arielle, would love to hear your origin story.
Sure. Well, I am not an immigrant, but as you heard from Lisa, I have lived in 15 different states. So my origin story is also a bit traumatic in a way, but also it made me who I am. So so let's see, I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and then my parents like to play this little joke that I can now joke about now that I'm older. They like to play this joke on us. So every summer, for about 7 years, they would come home, like they would come home from work and they'd say, hey guys, we're going to go on, we're going to surprise you guys with a trip. And little did we know that we were going on a trip to the next state that we were moving to. And it was like every summer for 7 years straight. So I went to 4 different high schools, trying to have friends and learn people in high school is very difficult. And I'm sure I was a horrible teenager during the time. But, I really do think about it now that I'm older, and I say to myself, I'm thankful that I had such an experience in doing that, because it really made me a bit of an extrovert and able to kind of make conversation with just about anybody. Usually my pickup line or my opening line to anyone is like, hey, where are you from? Because I'm like, oh yeah, I used to live there. I lived there for about a year. Oh, what school did you go to? I used to go there too. Yeah, so the world is really small. So that was me kind of growing up through high school. And then I went to Purdue University for my undergraduate in the middle of Indiana. I always tell people Purdue University is in the middle of a cornfield in a city called West Lafayette, Indiana. And city is a big word that I probably wouldn't use too loosely. It's more of a town. But you can't, if you leave the university, there's nothing around you. But similar to Lisa, I wasn't part of Inroads, but I had this thing of like, well, I moved around a lot. I started school in Indiana, and my parents, they moved to Boston after I was starting school in Indiana. So that was great. And I said, well, I have to find a job. I have to do something for the summer. So I just started, networking. And to Lisa's point, we didn't have these great tools when I was in college. We didn't have like LinkedIn to connect with people. Facebook was kind of just starting to be a thing, like around the time that I had started. So it was harder to kind of network, but I really just tried to tap into my university professors, people that my parents might have known, family, friends. I was not shy about asking people, again, because I became such an extrovert out of default. I wasn't shy to kind of ask people. And so my first internship was with a very small company called Gallagher. And they do insurance. I'm sure they're doing great right now, but it was, I was working there. And the great news that I will always say about internships is that you will either learn what you really want to do when you grow up or what you don't want to do. And you should take both of those as a lesson learned. So I knew Gallagher and insurance was not going to be the industry for me, but I soon found my way to a number of other companies like Procter & Gamble and Kimberly-Clark, as you heard Lisa say. So thank you. Hopefully you guys liked our stories a bit. You could hear a little bit more about us. So Lisa, you interned at Colgate-Palmolive, which was an amazing, we've all heard of Colgate toothpaste, right? And I'm sure we've all used many of their products. So talk to us about your internship journey. Like, as you got there, what did you like? What didn't you like? How did you know that marketing was even going to be something that you wanted to go into as well?
Thank you for that question. And actually, it is a story of don't always believe everything that people tell you, right? And you really do need to follow your gut, because sometimes folks will tell you a thing and it doesn't strike you right. Listen to your gut. She's the first, or he is the first voice that you should listen to. So Inroads at the time was really focused on accounting internships. And I knew I didn't want to do accounting, but that year in particular, Kismet, it happened to be that they were opening up and testing a marketing internship. And the way you got an internship with Inroads was you had to go interview with the company, and the company, you go through an interview just like you would for a full-time job. And then that company decided whether they wanted to give you an offer. And if they did, then you landed the internship. And they sent out a few of us to go do this interview with Colgate. Now, the other thing that Inroads did, which was fantastic, was much like what we're having today, trainings. We would go in on the weekends, on a Saturday usually, and hear about like how you should dress for an interview, what are some of the things you should do. I heard Ro talk about carry your notebook, write down everything, et cetera, et cetera. So they would kind of train us on that. And the other thing they did was they trained us on what we should wear and how we should look and so forth. And I had braids at the time, much like my lovely Maya does. And this was the year of our Lord, way before 2000s, right? And they said to me, you need to take out your braids, because braids at the time were not seen as professional. And I decided not to listen. I was like, if these people don't like me and my braids, this is probably not the right place to be. So I went in and, interviewed with braids, and I got the job. And, I just want to just say that to you guys, because it's really, really important to follow. You shouldn't be always like, anti da-da-da-da, but follow your instinct, your gut, bring your whole self, your truthful self to the table. And if these places are not meant for you, then you probably shouldn't be there. So that's how I got the internship. Once I was there, I was able to it was 3 summers of a paid internship. It's making bank, y'all. I was so happy. And on the second rotation, I went through consumer marketing, where we did like freestanding inserts and coupons. So I was able to learn about that part of marketing. The next summer, I went into analysis and marketing analysis and the numbers and Nielsen and, what are the stats? And I loved that. I loved being able to see the numbers, because I had a mathematical brain, and then create a story from there, because I had a creative brain. And so I convinced them to give me a job through the year for their bank. And I worked at Colgate both in the summers and then through the year until I graduated college. And that's when I came to, I'm old. I still have a home phone, so just ignore that. Amina, can you please, my administrative assistant, can you please answer? Anywho, I was able to learn that I needed an MBA. And I was really mad at that. But had I not had the internship, I wouldn't have known what it would take to have a marketing career. So I quickly, when I finished college, I got another job in another industry. To what Arielle said, I didn't love the energy industry. And then I went on quickly to get my MBA, and again, secure an internship at J&J, and that's where I ultimately went on to work. So that's kind of my journey. I will also say that I got an offer for an internship at Colgate in order to turn it down, because I didn't get the job at the start. So, sometimes petty matters. Hashtag petty sometimes matters.
It does. It does.
So with that, I would love to hear your internship journey. I heard you talk about Gallagher and the insurance business. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I kind of had a similar journey, right? So so my undergraduate was in business management. It actually was, my minor was in marketing. So I went to school thinking, oh, I'm going to be a marketer. And as you all heard from my intro, I am not in marketing today. So how about that, to figure out what you want to be when you grow up? So, so my first internship, it was with this insurance company. I was like, this is not the industry for me. We don't understand each other. but then I ended up working. So I had a number of different internships with just very small firms, very small organizations, you know, companies that nobody would probably even know about today. And then I went back I played around a little bit, if I'm gonna be honest, during my college years. I wasn't the best student, which I would not give as advice, but that's why I kind of interned at kind of smaller companies. And I was really trying to find myself. But to Lisa's point, I was trying to really listen to my gut and figure out what I wanted to do. So I ended up landing my first job, which was at Kimberly-Clark Corporation. And so I don't know if you guys know, but Purdue it's known for being an engineering school. And I did not study engineering, but they teach us a lot of the engineering stuff while there. And so my first job was like in a logistics operations role with Kimberly-Clark. Again, quickly realized this is not for me. So I worked there for about a year, and I ended up deciding, you know what, I'm going to go back and get my MBA, my master's degree. And so I took a pivot, and I just basically during that 1 year of work, I studied for the GMAT for, you know, my nights and weekends. I would just study really hard, and then I passed the GMAT, and then I went back to Purdue because I actually really liked being in the cornfield for some strange reason. So I went back to Purdue, and I decided to go pursue my master's degree. And so, but I knew that there was a shift kind of happening in my life. So, you know, I was doing this like logistics operations role, but I just wasn't excited about it. I didn't feel passionate by it. And you heard Lisa talk a little bit about, trying to modify yourself to kind of fit into a job. And I really didn't feel like I was fitting into logistics and operations, marketing, business, like that just wasn't me. And so I really started to have conversations with other employees that I was working with at Kimberly-Clark. And one of those people was our HR leader at the time. And I was super inspired by her work. At that time, she was doing a lot with diversity and inclusion. She was doing a lot with hiring. She was doing a lot with like organizations and transformations and what we can be doing with, going on campus to get the best talents and interns and things like that. And I was just like, this is super cool. So I said, so then I remember I resigned from there, and they're like, well, what are you going to go do? And I was like, I'm gonna go back to school. And I had no money. So I went back to school and got my master's degree full time. And then I was a more serious student during my master's studies, I will admit that. So I ended up getting internships at a number of different companies, but as Lisa mentioned, petty matters. There was some of those companies that I worked at, my internships at, they didn't offer me full-time jobs upon graduation, but they wanted me to come back now that I had gotten my master's degree. And I was like, oh no, I'm on to bigger and better things now. So I interned with P&G, and I really loved my time at P&G. They have some really cool brands. I got to work with, we had a brand CoverGirl, and they had a My Black is Beautiful campaign. I worked with Tide. Yeah. They even have a brand called Arielle. I don't know if you guys know that.
They do.
But
That's
they do
right.
have
That's
a brand
P&G.
called Arielle. It's basically Tide, but
Yes.
it's sold in many other countries outside of America. And so I was obsessed with that. Any company that sells a brand with my name on it, I'm here for it.
And pronounced the right way too.
And pronounced the right way. That's right. So I loved working at P&G. I was living in Cincinnati, Ohio, but as you guys heard, I moved around a lot. I lived in 15 states. Then they moved me to Connecticut. So I was at P&G, and then I kind of started this journey of like continuing to follow what my passion areas were, and continuing to what I like to call is add tools to your toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about your journey as an intern, right? And you're learning so many things right now. You're learning things that you like, you're learning things that you don't like, you're learning kind of, maybe this is something I want to pursue, maybe not so much this. But I always say to myself, like, continue to learn and continue to add tools to that toolbox and keep those tools sharp. And so I left from P&G, and then I decided to join this company called Lockheed Martin. I think they're a very cool company. They make Black Hawk helicopters, and I could tell you all about the cockpit of a Black Hawk helicopter. If you ever want to talk about that, like we can do that. Yeah. So I did that, and then that was the company that took me over to live in Ankara, Turkey, of all places. So wasn't on my bucket list of places to live, but I was like, why not? I'm free next week. And so, but I had a great opportunity to do that. And so since then, just kind of, like I said, it's all about kind of adding to that toolbox and adding those tools. And then it's that experience has now led me to Mastercard, where I get to work with some pretty cool people like Lisa. So
I
yeah.
love that. There's actually a question in the chat. What is some advice you have for students who are passionate about joining the industry, but may not have the grades experience required? And I think I heard you say that as an undergrad, you weren't necessarily making that amazing grades, and yet you are still now able to, you went to Turkey, you flew, I'm just gonna like be hyperbolic and say you flew helicopters, right? And now you are VP at Mastercard in Human Resources. So what would you say to a passionate student?
Yeah, listen, for me, it's don't let one point in time define who your legacy is going to be, right? So like I said, I'm thankful that I didn't have that as kind of my testimony, right? That I was able to kind of bounce back from it. And school is difficult. We all have a number of different challenges that we have to go through. So I can totally empathize and understand that. But I would say just kind of think to yourself, like, find what those passions are. And it could be in your current field of study. It could be in something else. Maybe you need to pick up a minor. Maybe you need to, I know that some students are taking gap years, or taking some time away just to kind of reevaluate and do things like that. Again, it goes back to just listening to your heart and to your gut in terms of where do those passions lie for you, and making sure that you are pursuing those so that you can feel some sense of happiness at the end of all of that. I know many friends of mine that also weren't as great students, and now they're entrepreneurs doing very successful things right now. I know other friends that are, they were kind of in corporate, and now they're doing kind of more on the nonprofit side too. So I feel like life is a game of kind of, trial and error. Sometimes sometimes you hit it, and sometimes you don't. But you kind of have to keep trying things and taking risks in order to really figure out like which one of these things is going to be the right path for me. So
I completely agree with you. And I'd also say to give it away. If you have a passion and a thing that you really enjoy and you love, just give it away, right? That will allow you to meet the type of people that are like-minded, help you also learn from a set of skills, and it will also ultimately potentially get you into the industry in a different way. You heard Arielle and I describe journeys of, we had kind of a vision of what we wanted to do, and it turned out that's not what we wanted to do. Or for me, I really loved marketing, and I had to take a longer road in order to get to what I wanted. So it's okay. It's a longer path. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? And it's not like a destination per se. In terms of, for me, I do a lot of philanthropic work. And so, yes, I am doing this in my day job, but in my free time, I really am passionate about creating a pipeline for Black women, because I'm a Black woman, to make it into these spaces and into these industries, because there's not that many of us. And so I really work a lot with trying to get kids in elementary school and high school, like, to see opportunities so that they can then aspire to and ultimately become that. That's my little thing that I'm passionate about. You may be passionate about something else. So if that is a passion and you love marketing, then go give marketing services, because a lot of nonprofits and schools and all, these things that you may love or want to support need marketing support. Give it away, and then add to your resume and keep just trying for the industry and the types of companies that you want.
Absolutely. I love that, Lisa. I really do. I think we only have about 15 more minutes, so I'm going to pause and see if there's more questions. I see another one just popped into the chat. So let's see. As an intern, what are some ways you can make yourself stand out to ensure that you are hired on afterwards?
That's a good one.
Yeah, I can start and then we can build on it. So I can speak from the HR perspective because this is what I do for a full-time job. So happy to share any tips and tricks. So hey, listen, I would say to make yourself, you need to be yourself, be authentically you, because employers nowadays are not looking for the same person that they hired a year ago, 12 months ago, 5 months ago. They're looking for, what is your unique aspect that you're going to bring? What's your unique perspective that you're going to bring? Are you bringing, you've lived in 15 states, you lived in other countries. Are you bringing, hey, you're studying, you're studying communications, or you're studying marketing, and you've got a passion in philanthropic work, or you've got a passion for sports marketing and things like that. What are those things that you're bringing to the table that are uniquely you? And they could be personality traits, or they could be work experience. I also think to always familiarize yourself with the company's values. So on any company's website, right, they always list out like their values, what they stand for, like their mantra, their vision and principles. Always look at those. They typically at the end of your internship, they'll make you do like a end of your internship presentation and things like that. Make sure you try to incorporate those things into your presentation, because they'll look at it and be like, oh wow, they've been really paying attention to our culture and what we stand for as a company, and they'll be impressed by it. I know I've been impressed with it when I've sat through internship presentations. I'm like, wow, this employee is really embodying who we are as a company. And I think that they're going to really make it far as a full-time. So Lisa, anything else you'd add there?
Yeah, I'd also say to be a learner. Yes, I heard Rose say ask lots of questions and take notes, but don't just do that because you're trying to be noticed. Do it because you're trying to learn, right? You should be asking questions and then integrating what you learned into your next set of conversations. So, and don't just go trying to meet everybody because, this one is the VP of such and such, and this one I saw at the Ad Club of New York thing, so I should definitely link them in. Don't do that. With your authentic knowing of yourself, so what Arielle says, then you can start to curate the people that will help you advance the lessons that you need, so that you can then have that strong internship presentation. In practice, I try to do this by assuming I know very little and then seeking the feedback and voices of others. I take classes that I have little experience in just to learn. Like recently I did a quantitative data literacy class with NYU School of Public Health, just because I wanted to learn about that. Or I listened to podcasts like Systems Check, right? So when you are doing these things, just make sure you're integrating the lessons. When you're checking in with people at the companies that you work with, try to learn something from them. Be like a sponge, right? And don't be so concerned about, in 5 years, I want to become a director. Really try to be amazing at the job that you were given and deliver or exceed the expectations that were set for you. I see a question in the chat, I think from Jesse.
Yeah.
Lisa, how did you translate your experience and tell the better parts of your story on your resume? You're talking about Jesse as an intern, right? Like, I'm hoping Jesse will give me a little more. Yes. Yeah. Can you just give me a bit more color about what you mean?
So I've had many different experiences, and I don't know necessarily which ones to put on my resume, which ones to leave off, and which ones are most related in that case.
Gotcha. What I would say is think about the job, and Arielle, please jump in too. Think about the job that you're trying to land right? Like, what are the skill sets that that job is looking for? Teamwork, you know, creativity, etc. And then edit your resume to highlight those experiences first.
Yes.
Right. And then if you have a whole bunch of other things, you almost put that in an other section, right? And then, you know, you can kind of in a very short way say what those kinds of experiences are to give people the breadth. But you have to understand that folks are scanning in a lot of times. So you want to put the best of the things that line up at the top. And you may have different versions of your resume depending on the type of job that you're looking for. Arielle?
Yeah, I would 1000% echo that. I mean, I think the name of the game, to Lisa's point, when you apply to jobs now, they get submitted into like a database of resumes, right? And as an HR person, I can tell you nobody reads your resume through and through, but thank you for putting all the great work into it. But we don't have time to read them all. But what our system does is we look for buzzwords. So say, for example, a bullet point in the job description that you're looking for is, you know, works well with teams or something like that. If you've got the word teamwork in, as Lisa said, kind of as a highlighted experience, and you've got that, you know, a couple of times on your resume or one time at least, then it's an all AI driven thing, then our systems will pick that up and be like, okay, he at least can do this one, you know? And then, so it's not just teamwork, you know, look at the job descriptions though, because they usually will have the experiences that we're looking for in employees. So, and again, connecting it back to those values and things like that you see. When I was looking for jobs, I typically, to Lisa's point, I did have a couple of different versions of my resume. Again, just trying to tweak it to what you're specifically looking for. So marketing, you might be looking for a general marketing role, or you might be looking for something more in sports marketing, or you might be looking for something more in advertising. You might have little tweaks to each version of your resume that can highlight a bit more to those specific nuances that advertising would have that maybe generalist marketing wouldn't have, or sports marketing versus, you know, like a marketing communications, you know, and things like that. So hopefully that helps give you a bit more.
There's a good one in the question. Oh, thank you, Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole was asking, Arielle, this may help be for you. How do you go about telling your employer that you'll be switching to a new job?
So maybe you can give me a little bit more color. Do you mean like you are thinking about leaving the company? You're thinking about applying for new roles within the company?
Yeah, like you're thinking about leaving the company because you have a better offer somewhere else.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say anything to them. Personally, I think you should just not say anything to them until the time is right. So I 1000% would advise you to you go through the interview process. And it's not about not being transparent. It's about protecting your future opportunities, right? The world is very, very, very small. And what you would hate to do is you would, you know, say something to your manager then calls somebody that they might know at this new company. They might block something because you never know people's intentions or their motives. So go about, you know, interviewing and looking at other companies and other jobs. And let's say that you do secure a new offer. When you're ready to resign, then the time that you should be ready to resign is after you have accepted the job offer, they've given it to you in writing, you know, via email and writing, you've signed off on that, and you've passed your background check. Do not resign until you passed your background check. I've seen that far too many times.
That's a good one. I have to write that down.
Please do not resign before you have passed your background check, because that can backfire on people at times. And there's no judgment, but sometimes that happens. So do that. And then listen, sometimes what happens is employers will say like, hey, you know, you say like, I resigned from PepsiCo to work at Mastercard. And they might say to you like, hey, what if we gave you, you know, $10,000 more in your base salary, would you stay? Then it becomes a conversation. And if you're willing to entertain that conversation with your current employer, then I would say go for it and do it. You can also use your external offer as a negotiation tactic with your current company. it's gonna, you just have to remember about burning bridges and how small the world is, but just, you know, kind of keep those things in mind as you're going about that. But I don't think disclosing that you're interviewing with other companies is the right tactic.
The other thing to just add to what Arielle is saying is, once you do get that offer, make sure you give your current employer enough notice, right? And to negotiate with the new employer. Like you want to make sure that both employers are seeing you as a professional, a person who is mature and can build and maintain relationships. And you want to think about this like you're graduating school, right? You don't want to burn down the school building. You're gonna have to come back for the reunion to show them how fly you are, right? So you want to maintain then the great relationships you've built in the employer that you're departing from, and then also extend that same level of grace to your new employer.
Yeah.
Now, I see there's one other question, but I know that there's only 3 minutes left. So
no, it was just a comment. Oh no, sorry, you're right. There is. Yeah. Okay, I can't read.
Aya, do you want us to take this as the last, or like how do you want to?
We're really more beholden to your time. So if you have a hard stop at 1:30, we would absolutely love you to just take this question and let this be the last question. And of course, if you're willing to share out your information to connect, everybody can always reach out and ask any questions that they have at a later time.
Okay,
we'll definitely
great.
do that. So,
and I've been saying, Maya, that's you, right? Like,
yes, of
red
course.
braids. Okay,
Yes.
I just want to make sure because Nicole's name just popped up at the top, and I was like, oh dear Lord, don't tell me I've been saying the wrong name this whole time.
No. So we will cover off very quickly. If you do want to get in contact with either one of us, find us on LinkedIn. It's our full names, as you can see them there, Arielle Knight and Lisa Maxwell, Mastercard. Just put it in LinkedIn and you'll find both of us. But we will try to take this last question and answer it as quickly as possible. But we'd love to connect with you if you guys have additional questions or you want to expand your network. So given the current pandemic and a growing wealth gap, how has working at Mastercard helped you become more financially literate? Lisa, do you want to start? And I'll try to round it out.
Yeah, definitely. So I thought I knew how money worked before I came to Mastercard. I really did. Like, you know, I'd grown in my career, made a couple of little coins and so forth. But since coming here, I have really learned more about how cash works, the vision of a cashless society, which we've seen really get advanced through this pandemic, and you know the need for us to go touchless or have things delivered at home. So it's been really a big education coming from the CPG or consumer packaged good industry into financial services, and really learning about some of the nuances of how our financial system really works. And talking about from before, being a learner and always coming in and asking plenty of questions, some of the things I did was to call a few employees before I came in and say, like, what are some of the books I should be reading? What are some of the articles I should be looking into, or publications I should be, frequenting in order to learn a bit? And so that at least gave me a good initial foundation. But my God, in the last 4 years, my mind has really expanded, and I've become that much more aware of how the systems work, as well as become way more financially literate. How about you, Arielle?
Yeah, I would say the same. It's all about learning how many people, for me, it was an aha moment to learn how many people didn't have access to being able to pay on their phones and didn't have access to a bank. And it's all about, wow. So you learn about that, but then you also learn, to Lisa's point, how does money work? How does credit work? You think you know enough about credit scores and taking out loans and things like that, but it's very eye-opening. And I can appreciate that Mastercard, has such a dedication to really kind of closing that wealth gap in financial literacy programs for employees, for the community, for everyone. So so yeah. Well, hey, it was really great to meet with all of you and get to know you better. So thank you for inviting us, Maya, and Ad Club of New York. And we look forward to staying in contact with all of you.
Lisa and Arielle, thank you so much for your time. This is a very vibrant conversation that you both shared with us. And thank you for answering all of our questions. It was so lovely to meet you both.
Our pleasure.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Talk to y'all
And
soon.
yes, have a good afternoon, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the week.
All right, bye-bye.
Cheers.